Hey, good evening, everybody. You guys are about the most patient group that I could hope for. Ran about 8 or 9 minutes behind here. Just trying to put everything together and get some of that good video from Tim Marshall, and I appreciate that was when he was on the phone with us when we were doing the live cast back about 3:30 or 4. He was back around Naples, and he was in that north part of the eye wall grabbing that video. But yeah, listen to that. Just completely quiet where we're at in this part of Texas, and looking at the sky, stratocumulus overhead, and you can see that very slight drift from top to bottom, indicating that we've got a bit of a northerly flow across the area. So let's head into the charts, and things returning gradually back to normal here. Now, the only thing is that we are under a kind of an unusual pattern here. Normally, when it's September, coming up into mid-September, we've got the Bermuda High, which means these isobars that you see here, usually those are stacked up kind of like this right here. So what that means is we'll have southerly flow coming up from the Gulf, lots of moisture, fairly clear weather, and then we'll have the sea breeze come up north from time to time. We've got a much different pattern in place tonight, and if we put up the plots, let's check that out. What did SPC break? All right, SPC is all broken. Well, there we go. Okay. Yeah, you can see that northerly flow, and man, look at those dew points. 55 across much of North Texas, which is very low for this time of year. Normally we see dew points about 70 to 73. So this is kind of a reflection of the lower pressures out in this area and the higher pressures in this region here. Actually more up towards the Great Lakes, and that's just kind of slinging cold air into this part of the country. Yeah, let's take a look at that polar orbiter. I bet there's some good stuff to look at there. Let's see, what are we up to, the 9th or 10th? Yeah, 10th. Let's take a look at that, and we're going to see Irma there over Florida. This is going to be about 1 o'clock, around the time it was starting to come inland. Now, we did not really have much of a well-defined eye. The storm came ashore as a Category 4, diminishing to kind of a Cat 3 storm, and when we're in that range, usually the eyes tend to be kind of cloudy or covered by cirrus, and that was the case today. Let's take a look at a couple of the other polar orbiter, see if we have like a more overhead shot. Yeah, a little bit of an eye there. And we'll try the Suomi image, and yep, just kind of a cloudy eye, consistent with a low Cat 4 to Cat 3 storm coming inland. But anyway, yeah, Florida did get it, and even though it was a little bit on the weak side, those winds were widespread, and man, they even got it big time on the west coast, and we'll show that coming up here. I'm going to bring up those charts separately. So let me get that all ready here. Okay, NHC at this time, Irma is a Cat 2 hurricane. We got 90 knots sustained, so we're gradually on the way down. Pressure's coming up to 942, so rapidly starting to fill there with friction as the system moves inland. And quite a bit of rain out in that direction, and slight risk due to a few supercells in that area. And I've got a few charts to show you as far as that goes. We'll take a quick look at the upper air pattern, 250 millibar chart. Looking like this. Pretty zonal across Canada. We've kind of broken down that big upper level ridge, and now we've got this large scale troughing, kind of a large long wave trough off the Canadian coast. Looks like maybe a little bit of long wave ridging across the central U.S. and a little bit of troughing across Tennessee, and I kind of wonder where that's coming from. I don't think that's associated with Irma. That's probably another system that came through. I'm going to have to look at the thickness and pressure to see what's going on there, but this kind of, yeah, this is probably associated with that cold air that we've got over the Midwest. So normally when we have troughing in the upper levels, that tells us that we have cold air in the lower levels. So that's kind of what we're seeing here, and no wonder we're getting that northeasterly flow in this part of the country. And then a quick look at the surface chart. Let's see here. This is Canada right up here. Very progressive system moving through the Canadian prairies, west to east there. And here's the old polar high that moved through the northeast U.S. 1034 millibar high, very strong, and that's pushing to the southeast there. Irma moving up to the north, and it's going to be displaced probably to the northwest. Kind of hard to recurve into the middle of a big polar high like that right there. Okay, the synoptic scale pattern looks like this. The dominant feature is the polar high across the northeast U.S. High pressure centered across the Great Lakes, and Irma kind of tucked underneath that polar high. And you can kind of see that it's going to recurve to the north and going to get kind of shunted, most likely to the northwest into the Huntsville and Memphis area. Further north, we've got a cold front moving out of the Canadian prairies. There it is right there. Well-developed frontal system. So we're going to look for some cold air to come south over the next couple of days here. And we're starting to rebuild some of that lee side troughing there in the high plains of the Rockies. Okay, let's see. What else can we look at? I think it might be kind of cool to look at some SCUTs to see if there's any... I want to see if there's any balloon launches in the Florida area. We'll take this up to the 11th. Yep, tomorrow is September 11th. It's going to be, what, the 16-year anniversary there. So do we have a sounding out of Tampa? Well, I don't know. The hurricane is just to the south of there. And looks like we did get a launch after all. Where are they relative to the storm? Let's take a look. There's GEO level 3. Our remains of Irma moving inland, tracking pretty much directly north, so that puts Tampa under the northeasterly flow to the northwest of the storm. So we see a lot of northeast flow right there. And a lot of this is going to be contaminated because basically we launched the balloon right up into a cloud. We've got all those spiral bands laying right over Tampa. However, this probably would be consistent with a launch up into the inside of a hurricane. Very warm conditions there, a lot of latent heat release. And look at that, up at 500 millibars, we have a temperature of almost 0. That's pretty warm. I'm double checking that reading. That looks to be about -2 Celsius at 500 millibars. And normally we see about -10 to -15. So plenty of warming taking place within that storm. Let's see what else we've got. We'll try Jacksonville, way up to the north. Come on, Jacksonville. Yeah, there it comes. Again, fairly warm. And pretty good 40-knot flow coming in off the east coast. And then we'll try Tallahassee. See what that looks like there. And again, we can see the easterly flow and just a very humid troposphere all the way up to about 30,000 feet. I'm going to bring up the surface plots and we'll see what we're looking like at this time. Okay, we're downloading the latest METAR and synoptic data. And hopefully that did not affect our bandwidth too much. And let's plot that and see what's going on here. What kind of winds do we got? Well, we can see a few 60s in the Tampa area. A gust to 60 right there. I think that's going to be the International Airport there, MCO. And let's see here, 64. That's going to be at SEF. I'm not familiar with what that is, but that's in the center part of Florida. And then along the coast, we saw some very strong winds in the Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach area. We saw lots of 60s and even a few 70s today. Incredible winds coming in off the coast there, and it looks like it's started to die down a little bit, but we're still gusting to 60 at Vero Beach there. That's going to be about 69 degrees or 69 miles per hour. So still some pretty serious wind there. And let's see elsewhere. Winds surprisingly on the weak side up to the north. And the center of the circulation looks to be about just to the northwest of Fort Myers there. Getting 52 knots, which is going to be about 57, 58 miles an hour there. And so just one more check of the radar. A few tornado warnings up to the north, and that area has been pretty active. And I wanted to try to bring up some data for earlier. me see if I can get that to come up. Yeah, we had the area just off the coast of Jacksonville, Titusville. We had a lot of supercells out there earlier today. As I mentioned a few days ago, the left or the right front quadrant ahead of a storm tends to be an area where we have very strong low-level shear. And I'm trying to get these to come up. Loading the data. But we were seeing a lot of small supercells off the coast here earlier. So we're loading that at this time. And while that loads, I'll take a quick look at the chat, see what we got going on. Got Carl Berghoff and Sue M. and Ron Chalfant. So far, so good with Irma. Yeah, could have been a lot worse. Alex Front wondering what's going on with the surge on the backside. Ron says, better than a Cat 5. Yeah, we were looking at a couple of catastrophic scenarios here just a couple of days ago, and we kind of squeaked by without any of those problems, and even the dreaded storm surge up into the Fort Myers area, that did not come together since the storm went pretty far inland there. Anyway, here's all these storms off the coast of northeastern Florida, and a lot of these were rotating, spinning like a top. And there they are. I was going to try to bring up some of the velocity data. And the velocity data not really showing it very well. I think this actually showed it better on the Jacksonville radar. But a lot of these storms were rotating. And there was probably some very good tornado potential in quite a few of these. So I think probably tomorrow I'm going to try to load up some of the Jacksonville data and see if that kind of shows up a little bit better. Yeah, here's some more of these. You can see these storms here. They've got kind of like that curved structure there. If we zoom in on that. Not very much reflectivity gradient on the east side. Just a little bit of reflectivity gradient, but it's definitely got that curvature shape on each cell. There's kind of like a comma appearance, and you can see it better as you get closer to the radar. Some of that comma shape there. And let me see if I can zoom in on that here. What we're going to have to do is set a motion vector and look at storm relative velocity. Let's see if we can get that to work here. Yeah, those are pretty fast-moving storms, so I'm going to have to probably bump this up to about 40 knot motion. But let's see, here would be one example. Got about 11 knots out, storm relative velocity, and then over here we've got 40 knots inbound towards the radar. So some pretty good rotation here. And then we have this other cell. Let's see if that's showing any good rotation. Not really. Let me try these here. Oh yeah, look at that. Very strong outbounds right there, very strong inbounds, and the axis of this couplet is diagonal relative to the radar. So instead of a couplet like inbound here and outbound like that, we've got a configuration kind of like that, and that tells us that we have cyclonic inflow. So this would be a fun storm to be chasing if that was possible. And you can see that that's kind of an embedded storm, and there it is right there. It's kind of a supercell out there over the waters. Echo tops, looks like that's up to about 38,000 feet, and picking up another top out here to about 48,000 feet. But this is a highly sheared environment, so echo top products have to be used with a little bit of discretion. Anyway, yeah, lots of rotation, even at the small scales, not just at the large scales. And this is what the landfall looked like earlier today, observed all the way from the Melbourne radar. Yep, there's that storm coming in. All right, so let's keep it rolling forward and look at the rest of the products. There's the latest infrared imagery. We've seen the colder tops start to disappear here a little bit, and we're wrapping a little bit of dry air into the circulation. Dry air aloft. You can see that coming together right there. It looks like a little bit of subsidence taking hold here. And we'll stop that on the latest frame, and that's the picture we have at this time. Coldest tops just northeast of Fort Myers there. All right, so let's keep it moving forward. Visible imagery. I was going to try to get a good look at the hurricane earlier before we lost light. I guess I can still give that another shot here. Let me see here. This is going to be kind of tough because I can't see the geography, but I'll just give this a shot real quick. All right, and while that's waiting, we'll take a look at the water vapor imagery. And there's Hurricane Irma starting to show some drier air entering the circulation, a little bit of subsidence wrapping in here. And we've got some dry air just off to the west, and eventually that's going to get entrained into the circulation just as well. And we'll probably be able to see that here on the GFS, precipitable water products. Okay, so what's going to happen over the next 2 weeks? Looks like in the low levels, we'll be wrapping some dry air in tomorrow morning. This is 12Z. Plenty of dry air up to the north over Georgia and Alabama, and there it is starting to wrap into the circulation. And then by late morning, the system will be moving up into Georgia. And there we see it taking that detour out towards Memphis. When we do the webcast tomorrow night, let's see, it's going to be Monday. It's going to be looking like this. Circulation over Georgia. The pattern across the U.S. is going to be dominated by this high pressure. And plenty of cool air coming down into Texas. Let me position this where you can see the dates there. All right, then for Tuesday. Tuesday, the remains of Irma out around the Memphis area. We've occluded the system off. It's occluded from the moist air, which is now over the Carolinas. Cold air kind of on its way out from the northeast. And things are looking pretty quiet in Texas. For Wednesday, it looks like Irma is pretty much dissipated. A lot of dry air in place across the Midwest, and most of the low pressure is in the western states. Got some colder air up to the north, and we can see that building here around Friday and Saturday. Looks like a bit of a cold front starting to come together in this area here. So we'll be watching for a cold air outbreak coming early next week, and there it's starting to come together. This is on Sunday, and look at that, we got Jose coming in the picture. And the GFS is bringing that close to the Outer Banks of the Carolinas. This is 180 hours out, so we're going to have to keep an eye on that in case it heads into Wilmington or Charleston. That's still a possibility. So we'll take a look at the European model and see what that shows. Anyway, more cold air coming down to the south, and then looks like pressure falls take hold again in the high plains once again. More cold air for the northeast U.S. Getting it again. They just keep raking in the cold air. But it looks like here in Texas we do get some of that. That's going to come around the 21st, 22nd. There's the next outbreak of cold air there. And then we get looks like another outbreak around the 25th. So that's good news for us, because I'm tired of summer. I'm looking forward to keeping the air conditioner off. All right, let's look at and see what the European model has got. Kind of concerned what that shows for Jose. Yeah, my voice is about gone from all the broadcasts over the past few days here. Anyway, there's the initialization of the European model from this morning. So by tomorrow morning, 962 millibar low up in northern Florida. That'll disappear up into the Memphis area, and here comes Jose. It's got it filling to a 1006 millibar tropical storm. So that's kind of unexpected there. Wonder what happened. And then it takes off, disappears to the northeast. So a bit of a different picture here compared to the GFS. And looks like we've got a little bit of a Pacific cold air mass coming in from the Pacific Northwest. 1027 millibar high coming into Oregon. So we'll kind of keep an eye on that. The GFS had a little bit more of that polar air coming out of northern Canada. And the European model thinking maybe more of a Pacific origin for that next outbreak. All right, let's see. That's probably about all I got. I just wanted to go ahead and run one more nightly weather forecast thing, and we'll just take a rest here and get caught back up. I need to get caught up on digital atmosphere. Let me take a look at the chat and see what we got going on here. Fun with Tech is in southwest Missouri. Couldn't make the trip to Florida this time. We got Burl H. and Fun with Tech and David Moore. Carl Berghoff. Tim has put his heart and soul into the hurricane. Yeah, it's kind of been putting in some blood, sweat, and tears here. But thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. Ryan woke up from a nice 4-hour nap. Power is still on. That's amazing. 60 to 70 mile an hour winds where Ryan is. Dry on the backside of the storm. Ryan says tons and tons of trees down. Got to clear out the streets for tomorrow. Mason Willits. Tracking storms just like I do. Good to have you here. Maybe we'll see you around. Ryan says the mass and area on the hurricane is amazing if you look at the scale. And yeah, I had measured the hurricane. I don't know how many of you saw that Facebook post I made, but I measured the size of the outflow shield at 1,625 miles last night, and that exceeded Tip, Super Typhoon Tip, by about 200 miles. And that had always been held as the largest tropical storm on record in terms of like outflow cirrus size and so on. So I think it's possible that Irma may have set a record as far as that goes. Hurricane Jose is possible, could be a problem, but the steering currents don't favor it. That's from Ryan there. NHC has it doing a loop-de-loop right now. Alex says, did you all notice how it clung to the shape of the Cuban coast? Almost like it was adjusting itself to vacuum up the richest air. And Ryan says Cuban landmass saved our bacon, and yeah, I definitely agree there. The track that we saw, you can pretty much see it right here. Irma pretty much grazed the Cuban coast for about a day, and that kind of slowed it down and took a lot of energy out of the storm. By the time it departed the coast there, we were looking kind of like I think it was maybe a Cat 3 storm or so, but the earlier progs that we were looking at had brought it right up like this, and that was looking to be kind of like the worst case scenario. So that little jog it took to the south really did save us, and it was the European model that had forecasted that leftward track. So once again, good news, good accuracy there with the European model. But towards the very, very end, with the landfall, the GFS seemed to have nailed that landfall as it came on shore. In fact, if we want to, we could take a look at some of those tracks. Why don't we do that real quick? Kind of do a Monday morning quarterback thing. I'm going to bring up some of the earliest charts that I saved from Irma. Let's see here. Irma from the 4th. There's the global ensemble forecast system. Yeah, this is actually all the models. This was back on the 4th. These were the tracks we were looking at. And you can see the Global Ensemble Forecast System, GEFS, all the blue lines, those were the NOAA tracks, and there was kind of a huge range of different possibilities here. The European had forecast a rightward turn, but it was a little bit later after this that it started bringing the track a little bit further to the south. But at this time, this was looking kind of like a worst case scenario here. Let's see here for the 7th. Yeah, here's what we were looking at for the 7th when the system was heading towards the Leeward Islands. And the actual track ended up looking like this right here. And what's funny is if you look at the track that went to the south over where this actual location was, it kind of followed this grouping onto the Cuban coast. So maybe we did need to be paying attention to that. And the UK Met and a couple of other models were going for that Cuban track. Others were keeping it pretty far to the north there. Yeah, let's jump forward a few days. Let's see, the 8 to 12Z. Let me take a look here. Here's what the, back on the 8th, there's what the GFS looked like. These were the ensemble members. So the median track kind of grazed the coast kind of like that. And look at that grouping there. That pretty much nailed it, the GFS. And then the European model looked like this. Kept it a little bit further north off the coast, but way back there, then even on the 8th, it was keeping it away from Miami. But I would say that that clustering there on the Florida coast was pretty accurate. And this is going back like about 2 days here. And you'll notice that the actual verified location was right here. I don't know if this is showing up. Let me take a look. Yeah, the actual verified location was right there, but the European models, the best ensembles, were trying to bring this even further to the south. So this is kind of that signal that we were looking at, that where the European model was really trying to pull that onto the coast, and I guess that turned out to definitely be the case there. All right, well, anyway, I think that's about all I got for tonight. I guess, is that everything? I think it is. So I guess we'll just take it easy tonight and take a breather, and we will, I guess, just do it again tomorrow. I appreciate you all. Whoa, sorry about that. Okay, that was a little bit uncalled for. Okay, thanks. Anyway, I appreciate you all watching the webcast, and we will see you tomorrow night. Take care.